The text message glowed on my wife's phone like a neon sign in the darkness of our bedroom. "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. Ryan doesn't deserve you." I stared at those words for exactly 17 seconds before Lisa stirred beside me, her manicured hand reaching blindly for the device. I pretended to sleep, my heart hammering against my ribs like a prisoner against cell bars. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ryan Carter, and I'm a corporate attorney who specializes in destroying people's lives legally. Ironic, considering I was about to discover mine was being systematically dismantled by the woman sharing my bed and the man I'd called my best friend for 15 years. The morning sun filtered through our floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across our pristine Dallas suburban home. Everything looked perfect from the outside. The marble countertops, the stainless steel appliances, the family photos strategically placed to suggest domestic bliss. But I'd learned something in my 20-year legal career. The prettier the surface, the uglier what lies beneath. "Morning, honey," Lisa said, gliding into the kitchen like she owned a runway instead of a house. At 36, she still turned heads, with her platinum blonde hair and designer workout clothes that cost more than most people's monthly salary. "I'm having lunch with Melissa today, then book club tonight." Book club. Right. The only thing Lisa had been reading lately were text messages from Alan Becker. "Which book are you discussing?" I asked, sipping my coffee and watching her face carefully. A micro-expression of panic flashed across her features before she recovered. "Oh, that romance novel everyone's talking about. Very passionate." I bet it was. Alan Becker had been my college roommate, my groomsman, my business partner in a failed restaurant venture that somehow strengthened our friendship instead of destroying it. He was the guy who held my hair back when I puked after my bar exam celebration, who helped me pick out Lisa's engagement ring, who stood beside me at our wedding promising to always be there for us both. Apparently, he'd taken that promise very literally. The signs had been building for months, but I'd been too busy with a major corporate merger to connect the dots. Lisa's sudden interest in fitness, her new lingerie purchases she claimed were for herself, the way she guarded her phone like state secrets. Then there were the social changes, mysterious plans that never quite added up, friends I'd never met, places she'd been that didn't exist when I tried to verify them. But the real revelation came 3 days ago at Derek's backyard barbecue. Derek Martinez was my law partner, a straight-shooting guy who threw legendary parties at his sprawling ranch-style home. I'd stepped inside to use the bathroom when I heard voices from the kitchen. Lisa's laugh, unmistakable and musical, followed by Alan's deeper chuckle. "Trust me, a new life awaits you without this worthless man," Alan was saying. "No doubt," Lisa replied, her voice dripping with contempt I'd never heard directed at me before. "I'll leave him with nothing. He's so focused on his precious cases, he has no idea what's coming." I stood frozen in the hallway. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see them. Lisa leaning against the counter, Alan standing close enough to smell her perfume, both of them radiating the kind of intimacy that takes months to develop. "The lawyer who can't see the evidence right in front of him," Alan said, running his finger along Lisa's arm. "How poetic." They laughed together, conspirators planning my destruction. I'd backed away quietly, returned to the party, and spent the rest of the evening watching them. They were good. I had to give them credit. No obvious touches, no lingering stares. But once you know what to look for, the signs are everywhere. The way they never looked at each other directly but always seemed aware of where the other person was. How Lisa's stories about her day always seemed to account for the same hours Alan was mysteriously unavailable. The inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. "Ryan?" Lisa's voice snapped me back to the present. "You're staring." "Just admiring my beautiful wife," I said smoothly. 20 years of legal training had taught me to control my expression, to reveal nothing until the moment I wanted to strike. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, admire away. I need to get ready for my lunch with Melissa." Melissa Crawford was Lisa's best friend since college, a bitter divorcee who'd made it her mission to poison every marriage in her orbit. She was the kind of woman who ordered wine at lunch and called it self-care, who spoke about men like they were defective appliances that needed returning. After Lisa left in her BMW, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, I made a phone call. "Patterson Investigations, this is Janet. I need to speak with Tom Patterson. Tell him it's Ryan Carter, and I need the full service package." Tom Patterson was a private investigator who'd worked several cases for my firm. Former Dallas PD, divorced himself, with the kind of cynical worldview that made him very good at uncovering the worst in people. Ryan, Tom's gravelly voice came on the line. What can I do for you? I need surveillance on my wife and a friend of mine. Full documentation, photos, financial records if you can get them. And Tom, I need it fast and I need it bulletproof. How bulletproof are we talking? Court admissible. This is going to get ugly. There was a pause. Personal or professional ugly? Both. I'll start today. Send me the details. After I hung up, I sat in my home office staring at the family photos on my desk. Our wedding day, Lisa radiant in white, me looking like I'd won the lottery. Our kids, Emma and Jake, 7 and 10 years old respectively, gap-toothed and innocent, vacation photos from Hawaii, Christmas mornings, birthday parties. All of it built on lies. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Great party last night. You seemed distracted. Everything okay? I typed back, just thinking about some changes I need to make. That was an understatement. I wasn't just thinking about changes. I was planning a complete demolition. See, people underestimate corporate attorneys. They think we're boring, predictable, obsessed with paperwork and procedure. What they don't understand is that we're actually professional destroyers. We take apart companies, dissolve partnerships, dismantle financial empires, and ruin reputations, all while staying completely within the bounds of the law. I'd spent 2 decades learning how to find pressure points and exploit them, how to turn people's strengths into weaknesses, how to make someone's life collapse so thoroughly they never saw it coming. Lisa and Alan were about to get a masterclass in why you should never betray a man who destroys things for a living. But first, I needed evidence. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with, how long this had been going on, and what they were planning. Because if there's one thing I'd learned in my career, it's that you never make a move until you have all the facts. I opened my laptop and began researching divorce attorneys. Not for myself, but to understand what Lisa might be planning. If she was talking about leaving me with nothing, she'd already consulted someone about the best way to do it. The game was on, but they didn't know I was playing yet. That was about to change. Tom Patterson moved like smoke. Within 48 hours, he'd provided me with a portfolio that would make the FBI jealous. Photos, credit card records, cell phone logs, and a timeline that painted a picture so clear it could have been an oil painting. The affair had been going on for 4 months. It started, according to the evidence, right after Alan's divorce was finalized. Apparently, my best friend had decided that since he'd destroyed his own marriage, he might as well take a shot at mine too. They're not being particularly careful, Tom said, sliding a manila envelope across my desk. Most cheaters are paranoid. These two act like they're untouchable. I opened the envelope and immediately wished I hadn't. The first photo showed Lisa and Alan at a downtown hotel, her hands in his hair, his mouth on her neck. The timestamp showed it was taken last Tuesday, the same day she'd told me she was shopping with her mother. There's more, Tom said quietly. Financial records show she's been moving money. Small amounts, but consistent. 500 here, 1,000 there, all going into an account she opened 3 months ago. Joint account. No, just hers. But here's the interesting part. Alan's been making matching deposits into the same bank. Different account. They're planning something. I flipped through more photos, each one a knife twist. Lisa laughing at something Alan said over dinner at Romano's, the restaurant where we'd had our first date. Alan's hand on her thigh in his BMW. The two of them entering his downtown condo, not emerging for 3 hours. The financial stuff gets worse, Tom continued. Alan's been having some problems. His real estate business is struggling, and he's got debts. Significant debts. The kind that make a man desperate. How desperate? Desperate enough to target his best friend's wife, who happens to be married to a successful attorney with significant assets. The picture was becoming clearer, and it wasn't pretty. This wasn't just an affair, it was a financial strategy. Alan needed money. Lisa wanted out of our marriage. And they'd found a way to solve both problems at my expense. There's something else, Tom said, producing another folder. I did some digging into Alan's divorce. His ex-wife, Jennifer, she's been trying to reach you. Reach me? Why? She says she has information about Alan that you need to know. Says he's done this before. I stared at Tom, processing this information. Done what before? Targeted married women with money. Jennifer thinks you're not the first friend he's betrayed. That evening, I met Jennifer Becker at a quiet coffee shop in Deep Ellum. She looked tired, older than her 38 years, with the hollow-eyed appearance of someone who'd been through a war. Ryan, she said, standing to greet me. Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you'd believe me. I'm listening. She sat down, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup like it was an anchor. Alan is not the man you think he is. He's not the man I thought he was either, but I learned the hard way. What do you mean? He's a predator. Not in the violent sense, but he preys on marriages, on friendships, on trust. During our marriage, he had 3 affairs that I know of, all with wives of his friends or business partners. My stomach clenched. 3? Sarah Mitchell, remember her? Her husband David was Alan's business partner in that construction venture 5 years ago. Alan destroyed their marriage, then bought David out for pennies on the dollar when David was too emotionally devastated to fight. I remembered David Mitchell. He'd been a confident, successful contractor who'd suddenly sold everything and moved to Arizona. We'd all assumed it was a midlife crisis. Then there was Rebecca Torres. Her husband, Carlos, was Alan's real estate mentor. Alan seduced her, convinced her to divorce Carlos, then dumped her the day the divorce was final. Carlos lost his business, his house, everything. Jesus. The third was my sister. I stared at her. Your sister? My own sister, Emma. She was married to a guy named Michael, who'd co-signed some loans for Alan's business. Alan seduced her, destroyed her marriage, and when Michael couldn't pay the loans alone, Alan foreclosed on their house. The coffee shop suddenly felt too hot, too small. Why didn't you tell me this before? I tried to warn people, but who's going to believe the bitter ex-wife? Alan's charming, successful, well-liked. I just looked like a woman who couldn't handle losing him. But you're telling me now because I've been watching. I saw him at that charity gala last month, the one your wife organized. I saw how he looked at her, how she looked at him. I've seen this pattern before, Ryan. He's not just after your wife, he's after your life. I left the coffee shop with my head spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my best friend, my marriage, my life, had been built on lies. Alan wasn't just betraying me. He was systematically destroying me using a playbook he'd perfected on other men, but he'd made one crucial mistake. The other victims had been contractors, small business owners, men without the resources or knowledge to fight back effectively. I was a corporate attorney with 20 years of experience in financial warfare. That night, I sat in my study planning my counterattack. The first rule of legal strategy is to know your enemy better than they know themselves. Alan thought he was playing chess while I was playing checkers. He was about to learn that I'd been playing chess all along. I just hadn't shown him my pieces yet. I started with the finances. If Lisa was planning to divorce me and take half of everything, she was in for a surprise. Over the past 2 years, I'd been restructuring our assets in ways that would make them very difficult to access in a divorce. Not illegal, I'm not stupid, but complex enough that any attorney would need months to untangle them. Next, I began documenting everything. Every lie Lisa told, every time her story didn't match her actual whereabouts, every inconsistency in her behavior. I installed monitoring software on our shared computer and tracking apps on our family phones, all legal since I owned the devices and paid for the service. The evidence poured in like water through a broken dam. Text messages between Lisa and Melissa planning strategy sessions about maximizing the settlement. Emails between Lisa and a divorce attorney discussing asset protection and custody arrangements. Most damning of all, recorded phone calls between Lisa and Alan discussing their future together and how much money they'd have once they'd dealt with Ryan. But I didn't move yet. In legal strategy, timing is everything. You don't reveal your hand until you can win the entire pot in one move. I had to wait for them to make the first move, to commit to their plan so completely that they couldn't back out when I revealed what I knew. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Lisa announced she was going to visit her sister in Houston for the weekend. Alone. She needed space to think about our relationship. According to Tom's surveillance, she never left Dallas. She spent the weekend at Alan's condo, and they spent Saturday afternoon meeting with her divorce attorney. The war had officially begun. Monday morning, Lisa returned from her fictional trip to Houston with a suitcase full of clothes that smelled like Alan's cologne and a story about her sister's marital problems that would have made a soap opera writer blush. Jennifer is having such a hard time, she said, unpacking in our bedroom while I pretended to read legal briefs. Her husband just doesn't appreciate her anymore. Takes her for granted, you know. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. That's terrible, I said, not looking up from my papers. Maybe she should talk to someone about it, a professional. Oh, she is. She's seeing a counselor who specializes in helping women recognize their worth. I bet she was. Probably the same divorce attorney Lisa had been meeting with. That afternoon, I made my first move. I called Derek and asked him to meet me for drinks at Murphy's Pub, a lawyer hangout downtown where the whiskey was good and the conversations were private. You look like hell, Derek said, sliding into the booth across from me. What's going on? I need to tell you something, but it stays between us for now. Derek's expression grew serious. He'd been my partner for 8 years, and we'd been through enough battles together that he knew when I was about to drop a bomb. Lisa's having an affair. I said simply. Derek's face went through several expressions before settling on anger. Are you sure? I slid a folder across the table. Photos, financial records, phone logs. She's been sleeping with Alan for 4 months. Derek opened the folder, flipped through a few pages, then closed it and pushed it back to me. Son of a bitch, what are you going to do? Destroy them both. Legally, completely, and publicly. Ryan, I get that you're angry, but... Derek, it's not just an affair. They're planning to take me for everything I'm worth. Lisa's already consulted a divorce attorney. They're moving money around, and I have evidence that Alan has done this before, to other friends. I told him about Jennifer, about the pattern of behavior, about the systematic way Alan had been destroying marriages and friendships for financial gain. Jesus Christ, Derek muttered. What do you need from me? I need you to help me protect the firm. When this goes public, and it will, I need to make sure our business doesn't suffer. Can you handle the Morrison merger while I deal with this? Of course. But Ryan, be careful. I've seen what revenge can do to good men. I'm not looking for revenge, I said. I'm looking for justice. That was a lie, but Derek didn't need to know that yet. My second move came the next day. I had lunch with my accountant, Patricia Williams, a sharp-eyed woman who'd been handling my finances for 10 years. I need to restructure some assets, I told her. Divorce protection. Patricia didn't even blink. She'd been through this dance with other clients. How much time do we have? Not much, maybe a week before she files. We can work with that. I'll set up a family trust with the kids as beneficiaries, the house, the investment accounts, the retirement funds. All of it goes into the trust. You'll still control it as trustee, but it won't be marital property anymore. Is that legal? Perfectly legal, as long as we do it right. The key is documentation. We need to show this is for estate planning and the children's future, not to hide assets from a divorce. By the end of the week, nearly everything Lisa thought she was going to get in the divorce had been moved into trusts and corporations that she couldn't touch. The house belonged to the Carter Family Trust. The investment accounts belonged to a corporation I'd set up for business purposes. Even my law firm partnership had been restructured to protect it from personal liabilities. Lisa had no idea. She continued her charade of the loving wife while planning my destruction, completely unaware that I'd already moved all the pieces off the board. But the financial maneuvering was just the opening gambit. The real strategy was psychological warfare. I started small. I began asking Lisa detailed questions about her activities, not in an accusatory way, but with the kind of casual interest that would make a guilty person paranoid. How was book club last night? What did you think of the ending? Your lunch with Melissa ran long yesterday. What did you two talk about for 3 hours? I tried calling you around 2 o'clock, but it went straight to voicemail. Were you in an inactive zone? Each question was innocent on its surface, but they were designed to let her know I was paying attention. The effect was immediate. She became nervous, jumpy, over-explaining simple things. Meanwhile, I began my campaign against Alan. I started by having Tom dig deeper into Alan's business practices. What we found was a goldmine of questionable dealings. Not quite illegal, but ethically gray enough to cause serious problems if the right people found out about them. Alan had been cutting corners on property inspections, hiding problems from buyers, and using his charm to talk clients into deals that weren't in their best interests. He'd also been inflating property values and taking kickbacks from mortgage brokers. I compiled all of this information into a comprehensive report and sent anonymous copies to the Texas Real Estate Commission, the Better Business Bureau, and 3 major newspapers. Then I waited. The first domino fell on a Thursday. Alan called me, panicked. Ryan, I need your help. Some asshole has been spreading lies about my business. The Real Estate Commission is launching an investigation. That's terrible, I said, injecting just the right amount of concern into my voice. What kind of lies? Bullshit about property inspections and client relations. Someone's got it out for me. Any idea who? Probably one of my competitors. You know how cutthroat real estate can be. Of course. What can I do to help? I need a lawyer, someone I can trust. Will you represent me? It was perfect. He was asking me to help him fight a battle I'd started. Alan, you know I'd do anything for you, but this isn't really my area. You need someone who specializes in real estate law. I can recommend someone. I recommended Patricia Chen, an excellent attorney who was also known for her thorough investigation of her clients' cases. If Alan hired her, she'd uncover even more problems than I'd already found. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. That's what friends are for. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and smiled. Alan was about to learn that when you wage war against someone, you should make sure they're not better at it than you are. But I was just getting started. The beautiful thing about destroying someone legally is that they usually help you do it. Alan and Lisa were so focused on their plan to ruin me that they never considered I might have a plan of my own. Lisa filed for divorce on a rainy Tuesday morning in March. She had her attorney serve me at my office, probably hoping to humiliate me in front of my colleagues. Instead, Derek and I opened a bottle of champagne. "You're celebrating being served with divorce papers?" Derek asked, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. "I'm celebrating the beginning of the end," I said, raising my glass. The divorce petition was a masterpiece of greed and delusion. Lisa was asking for the house, primary custody of the kids, half of all assets, and spousal support of $15,000 a month. She was also claiming emotional distress and asking for additional compensation for my neglect and emotional abuse. Her attorney, Sandra Morrison, was known for her aggressive tactics and her ability to squeeze maximum settlements out of wealthy husbands. She was expensive, ruthless, and very good at her job. She was also about to have the worst week of her professional career. I responded to the divorce petition through my attorney, Marcus Thompson, a family law specialist who made Sandra Morrison look like a kindergarten teacher. Marcus was the kind of lawyer other lawyers hired when they needed someone destroyed. Our response was a work of art. We didn't just deny Lisa's claims, we systematically dismantled them with evidence. Photos of her affair, financial records showing her secret accounts, documentation of her lies and deception. But the real surprise was our counter-petition. We weren't just fighting the divorce, we were asking for everything: primary custody, the house, spousal support from her, and compensation for her adultery and financial deception. Texas is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still affect property division and custody decisions. Lisa had handed me a loaded gun and then stood in front of the target. The custody battle was where I really went for the throat. Lisa had always been more interested in appearing to be a good mother than actually being one. She attended school events for the photo opportunities but missed parent-teacher conferences. She planned elaborate birthday parties for social media but forgot to help with homework. I, on the other hand, had been quietly documenting my involvement in our children's lives for months. Every school pickup, every doctor's appointment, every bedtime story. I had witnesses, photographs, and records showing that I was the primary caregiver despite working full-time. Emma and Jake were old enough to have opinions about where they wanted to live, and those opinions had been shaped by months of Lisa's increasing absence and my increasing presence. When the custody evaluator interviewed them, they both said they wanted to live with me. "Mom's always busy with her friends," Emma told the evaluator. "Dad's the one who helps us with homework and makes us dinner." "Dad comes to my soccer games," Jake added. "Mom always has something else to do." Lisa was devastated when she found out. She called me crying, begging me to reconsider. "Ryan, please, you can't take my children away from me." "I'm not taking them away," I said calmly. "I'm giving them stability. You're the one who chose Alan over your family." It's not what you think." "Lisa, I have photos of you with him. I have recordings of your phone calls. I know about the money you've been hiding, the lies you've been telling, the plans you've been making. It's exactly what I think." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "How long have you known?" she finally asked. "Long enough to protect myself and our children." "This isn't over, Ryan." "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." While Lisa was dealing with the collapse of her divorce strategy, Alan was facing his own crisis. The real estate commission investigation had expanded into a full audit of his business practices. 3 different news outlets had picked up the story, and his reputation was in free fall. But I wasn't done with him yet. I had Tom continue surveillance on Alan, and what we discovered was even better than I'd hoped. Desperate to maintain his lifestyle while his business collapsed, Alan had started running a side scam. He was showing properties to wealthy clients, then using the information he gathered during showings to target their homes for burglary. It was brilliant in its simplicity. He'd show a $1 million house to a client, note their security systems and valuables, then pass the information to a network of thieves he'd connected with during his divorce proceedings. The clients trusted him because he was their real estate agent, so they freely discussed their travel plans, their valuable possessions, and their security measures. The thefts were happening across Dallas, and the police had been baffled by how the thieves knew so much about their targets. Until I gave them the missing piece of the puzzle, I compiled all of Tom's surveillance, cross-referenced it with police reports of burglaries, and created a timeline that clearly showed the connection between Alan's property showings and the subsequent thefts. Then I called Detective Maria Santos, a contact I'd worked with on corporate fraud cases. "Maria, I have information about those high-end burglaries you've been investigating." "What kind of information?" "The kind that solves cases and gets people promoted." We met at a downtown diner where I laid out the entire case against Alan. Photos, timelines, financial records, witness statements, everything the police needed to make an arrest. This is solid work, Ryan. How did you put this together? Let's just say I had a personal interest in Mr. Becker's activities. Maria smiled. Personal interest. Right. Well, your personal interest is about to put a major criminal behind bars. When will you move on this? Tomorrow morning. We'll coordinate with multiple jurisdictions since the crimes crossed county lines. Will it be public? Oh, it'll be very public. This kind of arrest makes the evening news. Perfect. That night, I called Derek and told him to clear his schedule for the next day. Why? Because tomorrow is going to be the best day we've had in years. Alan Becker was arrested at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning while leaving his downtown condo. The arrest was coordinated across 3 counties and involved 12 different burglary charges totaling over $2 million in stolen property. The local news stations had been tipped off, anonymously of course, and the footage of Alan being led away in handcuffs was on every morning show in Dallas. I watched it from my office while drinking coffee and reviewing contracts. Derek came in during the 3rd replay. Jesus Christ, Ryan. Alan's been arrested for burglary? Apparently so. Shocking news. Derek stared at me. You did this. I provided information to the police about criminal activity. It was my civic duty. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? I'm just a concerned citizen who noticed some suspicious patterns. Derek shook his head, but he was smiling. Remind me never to piss you off. By noon, the story had exploded across social media. Alan Becker, successful real estate agent and pillar of the community, was actually the mastermind behind a sophisticated burglary ring that had terrorized wealthy Dallas residents for months. The details were delicious. The police had found evidence linking him to 15 different burglaries, including the theft of a Picasso from a Highland Park mansion and a collection of vintage wines worth $500,000. But the best part was the reaction from his social circle. The same people who had welcomed him into their homes, trusted him with their secrets, and considered him a friend were now realizing they'd been targeted by a predator. My phone started ringing around 1 p.m. Ryan, did you see the news about Alan? It was Jennifer Morrison, one of Lisa's friends from the country club. Shocking, I said. You just never know about people. I can't believe Lisa was... she must be devastated. I'm sure she is. Are you two okay? I heard there were some problems. We're working through some issues. These things happen. By the end of the day, I'd received 17 similar calls. The Dallas social scene was buzzing with gossip about Alan's arrest and speculation about how it would affect Lisa and me. Lisa called me that evening, hysterical. Ryan, you have to help me. Everyone thinks I was involved with Alan's criminal activities. Were you? Of course not. I had no idea what he was doing. But you were having an affair with him. Silence. Lisa. How did you... never mind. Yes, I was seeing Alan, but I didn't know about any burglaries. I believe you. The police will probably want to interview you, though. You should get a lawyer. Will you represent me? The audacity was breathtaking. She was asking me to represent her in a criminal investigation related to her affair with my former best friend. That would be a conflict of interest, Lisa. I'll give you some names. Ryan, I'm scared. You should be. The police did want to interview Lisa, along with everyone else in Alan's social circle. She wasn't a suspect, but they needed to understand his relationships and activities. The interview went badly for Lisa, not because she was involved in the burglaries, but because the detective asked her about her relationship with Alan, and she lied, repeatedly. She claimed they were just friends, that she'd never been to his condo, that she had no knowledge of his business practices. All lies that could be easily disproven with evidence I'd already provided to the police. Lying to police during a criminal investigation isn't just stupid, it's a crime. Lisa was now facing potential charges for obstruction of justice, but her legal problems were nothing compared to her social destruction. Dallas high society is built on reputation and connections. When word got out that Lisa had been having an affair with a criminal, she became radioactive. Invitations were rescinded, phone calls weren't returned, and former friends crossed the street to avoid her. Melissa, her loyal best friend and co-conspirator, was the first to abandon her. Apparently being associated with a criminal's mistress was bad for Melissa's own social standing. I can't be seen with you right now, Melissa told Lisa during a phone call I recorded through our home system. People are talking, and it's affecting my reputation. But I didn't do anything wrong. You had an affair with a criminal, Lisa. That's something wrong. I didn't know he was a criminal. That's not how it looks. I'm sorry, but I need to distance myself from this situation. Within a week, Lisa had gone from being one of the most popular women in our social circle to being completely ostracized. The charity boards asked her to resign. The country club suggested she take a leave of absence from her committees. Even our neighbors started avoiding her. The kids noticed, of course. Emma asked me why Mommy was crying all the time, and Jake wanted to know why his friends' parents weren't letting them come over anymore. I told them the truth, in age-appropriate terms. Mommy had made some bad choices, and now she had to deal with the consequences. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and those mistakes affect the whole family. Are you and Mommy getting divorced? Emma asked. Probably, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean we love you and Jake any less. Will we still live here? You'll live here with me. Mommy will have her own place, and you'll visit her sometimes. Good, Jake said. I like it here. The custody evaluation was completed 2 weeks after Alan's arrest. The evaluator's report was a devastating indictment of Lisa's fitness as a parent. Her affair, her lies, her association with a criminal, and her complete breakdown during the evaluation process all painted a picture of an unstable woman who put her own desires ahead of her children's welfare. The report recommended that I be granted primary custody, with Lisa receiving supervised visitation until she could demonstrate stability and fitness. Lisa's attorney tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge awarded me primary custody, the house, and most of our assets. Lisa was ordered to pay child support and received limited visitation rights. The final hearing was held on a sunny Friday morning in May. Lisa sat at the defendant's table, looking like a ghost of her former self. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the weight loss, the dark circles under her eyes, or the defeated slump of her shoulders. When the judge read the final order, Lisa broke down completely. She sobbed so loudly that the bailiff had to escort her from the courtroom. I felt no sympathy for her. She had chosen this path when she decided to betray our marriage and destroy our family. Every consequence she was facing was the direct result of her own actions. After the hearing, I drove to Emma and Jake's school to pick them up. They were waiting in the office, backpacks ready, excited to hear how their day had gone. How was court, Daddy? Emma asked as we walked to the car. It went well, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay now. And it was. The war was over, and I had won completely. But I still had one final move to make. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a call that completed my victory in ways I hadn't even planned. Mr. Carter, this is Detective Santos. I wanted to give you an update on the Becker case. What kind of update? Alan Becker was sentenced yesterday. 15 years, no possibility of parole for 12. The judge called it one of the most calculated and predatory criminal enterprises he'd ever seen. 15 years. Alan would be 55 when he got out, assuming he served his full sentence. His real estate license was permanently revoked, his assets had been seized to pay restitution to his victims, and his reputation was destroyed forever. There's something else, Detective Santos continued. During his sentencing hearing, Becker tried to claim that someone had set him up. He specifically mentioned your name? My name? He said you had orchestrated his downfall as revenge for his affair with your wife. He claimed you had manipulated evidence and planted information to frame him. I laughed. That's ridiculous. I provided information about suspicious patterns I'd noticed, but I certainly didn't plant evidence of criminal activity. The man was running a burglary ring. That's what I told the judge. Becker's claims were pretty clearly the desperate accusations of a man facing serious prison time. The evidence against him was overwhelming and came from multiple independent sources. I'm glad justice was served. So am I. Thanks again for your help with this case. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and considered Alan's accusations. He wasn't entirely wrong. I had orchestrated his downfall, but I hadn't framed him for anything. I'd simply uncovered his actual crimes and made sure the right people knew about them. The fact that he was actually guilty of everything I'd exposed made his accusations meaningless. You can't claim someone framed you when they simply revealed your actual crimes. Lisa had fared slightly better than Alan, but not by much. She'd avoided criminal charges by eventually telling the truth about her relationship with Alan, but her reputation never recovered. She'd been forced to move to a small apartment across town and take a job at a mid-level event planning company. Her visitation with Emma and Jake was awkward and infrequent. The kids had adapted well to our new life, and they seemed to view their time with Lisa as an obligation rather than something they enjoyed. Mom always seems sad, Emma told me after one of her visits. She keeps apologizing for things and asking if we forgive her. Do you forgive her? Emma thought about it seriously. I guess so, but I don't want to live with her. She made bad choices, and I don't trust her anymore. Out of the mouths of babes. The final piece of my revenge came 6 months later, and it was entirely accidental. I was having dinner at Romano's with Derek and his wife when I spotted a familiar figure at the bar. It was Melissa, Lisa's former best friend, looking significantly worse for wear. She was alone, drinking wine, and staring at her phone with the desperate expression of someone whose calls weren't being returned. "Isn't that Lisa's friend?" Derek's wife asked. "Former friend," I corrected. As we watched, Melissa noticed me and made her way over to our table. She was clearly drunk. "Ryan," she said, swaying slightly. "How are you doing?" "I'm doing very well, Melissa. How are you?" "Oh, life's been complicated since—" She gestured vaguely. "Since everything happened. I can imagine. People think I was involved, with Alan's activities. Just because I was Lisa's friend, they assume I knew something." I hadn't known that, but it made sense. In Dallas society, guilt by association was a real phenomenon. "I'm sorry to hear that." "My husband left me," she continued, apparently determined to share her troubles. "Said he couldn't handle the scandal. Can you believe that? 20 years of marriage, and he leaves because of gossip." "That's unfortunate." Lisa ruined everything. Her stupid affair destroyed all of our lives. The irony was perfect. Melissa, who had encouraged Lisa's affair and helped plan my destruction, was now blaming Lisa for the consequences. "Well," I said, standing up, "I hope things improve for you." As we left the restaurant, Derek shook his head. "Collateral damage." "What do you mean?" "Melissa. She's collateral damage from your war with Lisa and Alan." "I didn't do anything to Melissa. Her reputation was destroyed by her association with people who made bad choices." "Right. But you had to know that would happen when you exposed everything." "I had known, actually. I'd counted on it. Melissa had been part of the conspiracy to destroy me, and I'd wanted her to face consequences too. The fact that those consequences came from social ostracism rather than direct action didn't make them less intentional." "Sometimes innocent people get hurt when justice is served," I said. Derek looked at me strangely but didn't pursue it further. A year after the divorce, I was having coffee with Tom Patterson, wrapping up the final details of his investigation. Tom said, "in 30 years of private investigation, I've never seen anyone execute a plan like this. You didn't just win, you completely destroyed your enemies while staying entirely within the law." "I'm a lawyer. Destroying people legally is what I do for a living." "This was different, though. This was personal." "Yes, it was. Do you ever feel bad about it? About how completely you ruined their lives?" I considered the question seriously. Did I feel bad about destroying Lisa's reputation, ending her social life, and reducing her to supervised visitation with her own children? Did I regret exposing Alan's crimes and sending him to prison for 15 years? Did I have any sympathy for Melissa's collateral damage? "No," I said finally. "They chose to betray me. They chose to try to destroy my life and take my children. Every consequence they faced was the direct result of their own actions. Even Lisa? She made mistakes, but 15 years seems harsh. Lisa didn't get 15 years. Alan did. Lisa got exactly what she deserved. The loss of everything she tried to steal from me." Tom nodded slowly. "I guess that's one way to look at it. It's the only way to look at it." That evening, I was helping Emma with her homework when she asked me a question that stopped me cold. "Daddy, do you think Mommy learned her lesson?" "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Do you think she learned not to make bad choices anymore?" I looked at my daughter, so serious and thoughtful at 8 years old, and realized she understood more about the situation than I'd given her credit for. "I think she learned that choices have consequences," I said. "Whether she learned to make better choices, that's up to her." "I hope she did. I want her to be happy, but I don't want her to hurt people anymore." "That's very mature of you, Emma." "Jake says you taught the bad people a lesson. Is that true?" I thought carefully about how to answer that question. I made sure that people who did bad things faced consequences for their actions. Sometimes that's the only way people learn. "Good," Emma said, returning to her math homework. "Bad people should face consequences." As I watched my daughter work on her multiplication tables, I reflected on everything that had happened over the past 2 years. I had systematically destroyed 3 people's lives in response to their betrayal. I had used my skills, resources, and knowledge to wage a war that left my enemies completely defeated. Some people might call it revenge. I preferred to think of it as justice. Lisa had chosen to betray our marriage and try to destroy me financially. She had faced the consequences of that choice. Alan had chosen to prey on his friends and their families, using charm and manipulation to destroy lives for personal gain. He had faced the consequences of that choice. Melissa had chosen to enable and encourage the destruction of my family for her own entertainment. She had faced the consequences of that choice. I had simply made sure that the consequences were appropriate to the crimes. 2 years later, I received a letter from Alan in prison. It was handwritten on cheap paper, and the return address showed he was being held at a maximum security facility outside Houston. "Ryan," the letter began, "I know you'll probably throw this away without reading it, but I had to try to reach you. I want you to know that I understand what you did. I understand how you destroyed my life, and I understand why you did it. I betrayed you in the worst possible way, and you made me pay for it. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know that's impossible. I'm writing to tell you that you won. Completely and totally. You didn't just beat me, you erased me. I hope it was worth it. I hope destroying my life gave you the satisfaction you were looking for. I also hope you realize what you've become. You used to be a good man, Ryan. You used to believe in mercy and second chances. The man who destroyed my life isn't the man I used to know. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe the world needs more people like you. People who make sure that bad choices have real consequences. But I wanted you to know that I remember the man you used to be, and I'm sorry for the role I played in killing him." Alan. I read the letter twice, then put it in my desk drawer. Alan was right about one thing. I had changed. The man who had planned and executed the complete destruction of 3 people's lives wasn't the same man who had trusted his best friend and believed his wife's lies, but I didn't regret the change. The old Ryan had been naive, trusting, vulnerable to betrayal. The new Ryan was harder, smarter, more dangerous. The new Ryan protected what mattered, his children, his career, his future. The old Ryan would have been destroyed by Lisa and Alan's betrayal. The new Ryan had turned their betrayal into their destruction. That night, I tucked Emma and Jake into bed in the house that Lisa had tried to take from them, kissed them goodnight, and went downstairs to my study. I pulled out Alan's letter and read it one more time, then fed it into the paper shredder. Some people might say I had become a monster. Others might say I had simply learned to fight fire with fire. I preferred to think I had learned the most important lesson of all. When someone tries to destroy your life, you make sure they regret it. Lisa learned to crawl through the wreckage of her reputation. Alan learned to crawl through 15 years of prison. Melissa learned to crawl through the collapse of her marriage and social standing. And I learned that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. Justice had been served, completely and permanently.